I'm pumped to get your shoulder fixed up. Are we doing the chondrocytes? You getting the cartilage cells? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I think I have a medical review, but I was looking at my old one and it was showing extensive cartilage damage.
Yeah,
so I'm
we're
pretty
gonna get 'em
positive
in
we're
there,
going to get
yeah,
in there. So
yeah.
I'm excited to document my journey and see how it goes. And you know,
Well, we're the only place in the world you can get them, right?
I have to say it's just like such a smooth process to like get picked up in a nice dope spinner van, cruise through the border with ease. The setup here is super nice. The food's been so good, you know. I'm like, man, this is like excellent. So
Best
far,
hospital food ever.
yeah,
Right?
exactly, man.
Yeah.
It's just been an awesome experience. And then like today, you're sitting there talking. I'm looking out, and there's like dolphins swimming like literally in front of me. I'm like, man, this is great.
Welcome to the CPI podcast. I'm here with Seth Belisle. Why do they say that you're the head of the number 2 jiu-jitsu team? Because you got some stars on there. We were hanging out at that last UFC event.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for somebody who started jiu-jitsu in '93, for me, it is incredible to see what like UFC, what Mo, ADCC, Seth, some of these guys have done and where they've taken, especially the no-gi. But, you know, to me, jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. You know, I remember I went to my first Worlds. I started going down to Brazil in '99, you know, and I did the first ever tournament in Las Vegas in a high school gym, you know. We gave away $1,000 prize, and that was a huge deal, created all this controversy over it and stuff. And now, like, it's just blown up. So number 2, explain. You guys were crushing it last time I saw you.
Yeah, number 2. Well, you know, being like the co-founder and one of the owners with Craig, Nikki Ryan, and Ethan Krenlinston, like the founding partners of B Team. It's really tied to, you know, Craig marketing the second place. You know, you can't lose if you're just embracing the silver medal, right? So it's like a win-win situation, but now it's even more so, you know, because we have 2 silver medalists, two-time silver medalists in Craig Jones and Nikki Ryan in ADCC. Not taking anything away from Nikki Ryan and Ethan because they both trials winners. Ethan's actually a multiple-time trials winner. But yeah, man, it's just we're still looking for who's the top team. Who wants to call themselves number 1? They got to beat us to prove it. You know, that's kind of the mentality. But yeah, the explosion of jiu-jitsu, I'm the same way. I remember competing in Long Beach, like high school, college stadium or auditorium. And it was like, you couldn't even compete as a white belt. So my coach was like, oh, just put on a blue belt. I was like, sick, let's go, you know? And like, it's just crazy to see where it's come. I just think that now with the format and like really taking the sport, it's like no-gi's taking over just because it's easier to understand. And I think with the UFC backing and pushing grappling now, it's really taking off. It's really fun to see, you know, because it's like I never thought that it'd be a possibility to be like a paid pro jiu-jitsu athlete, and now I'm like partners with people that are doing very, very well. You know, not just through instructionals too, just from all kinds of opportunities through sponsors, content, and competitions. You know.
It is really amazing. You know, it reminds me of like, so Mark Lehman back in the day decided he wanted to be Cobra Kai because everybody hated him and he was the bad guy American. And Eddie Bravo, when he did the Hanat Larange, he's like, you know, I have to lose to Hanat, otherwise, you know, everyone's gonna freak out and you know, get pissed. But I mean, I love what you guys are doing. You're making it fun. You know, for me back in the day and on the mat, like I always wanted it to be more like lifestyle. I felt like in a lot of ways, like everything was kind of puckered and uptight, you know, in jiu-jitsu, but it's such a fun sport. The people that do it are so cool. You know, people come from all different race, color, creed, everything. You have a cop and a felon on the mat together, you know what I mean? And like everybody's together. And I always felt like to the outside world, if you didn't come step on the mat, experience being part of a team. You know, I used to travel and go to gyms like all over the place, all over the US, all over the world, you know, Japan, China, you know, South America. What the world saw of, you know, jiu-jitsu, especially when it was really small back then, and what like it really was, the fun was missing. And like you guys with your team and like everything, your podcast, Craig, like it's hilarious, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like been the biggest learning and the biggest win, because when we came together and Craig and I were talking, we were like, didn't know each other very well, going to launch this team and kind of do it. And it was like, hey man, let's just agree on these 2 things. Like the vibe of the room is going to be the most important thing. So the vibe, everyone having a good time, having fun at training, open forum for like, banter, bullshit, and like questions, and then a high level jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So if we can stick to like keeping an awesome vibe and high level jiu-jitsu, everything else will fall into place. And then with that, we launched YouTube right away because we wanted to, one, keep the guys relevant between competitions because, there's not a lot of scheduled competitions, ADCCs every 2 years. WNO kind of fell off with Flow as far as like being scheduled and routine. It was at the beginning. And then it's like now you got UFC Fight Pass coming out. So it's like, how do we keep these guys relevant and keep them like pumping instructionals, but also give an insight to like what it is in a high level room. And then it can be fun because as you know, like most jiu-jitsu schools, it's like very strict, that old mentality, you can't ask kind of like any question. It's not an open forum. Yeah. And so with that, it like brought people from all over the world like, whoa, like, oh, it's so fun there. I want to go visit there. And so that's one of the things that's been like so awesome about B Team is we have people from all over the world that just want to come and visit and train. And so it's like a visitor gym. We capped it at a low level of students so we could save room and keep the guys safe up to ADCC. But now we keep it capped because we want the space for all these visitors because you have people like literally from all over the world. We have people from like, you name it, countries like, oh, I was watching you guys on YouTube and you're like, you're in Austria? Like you're watching us, and they're like, yeah, we love your channel. And so like they come to visit and it's just, it's been really fun. I think that's the best thing about B Team is that it's super high level, but it's super fun. Like everyone's like having a good time, but when it comes time to training, it's serious, but no one takes himself too serious. Yeah. So it's more like we got cameras all over the gym, not just for content, it's to roast each other. Like, oh, I fucked you up. Look at this. Like, something you're going to think about later and then you can show it to the boys. So, that's been the most, critical thing I feel like with B Team is just making it a vibe school,
Yeah, just setting up those like, two ground rules. Right up in front. That's smart business. Smart, keeping you got core principles.
All the things that fell into place, like we said, so it's like everything just seems like it's on this steamrolling, and like a positive, and it's just so cool to see like, to go into an environment where it was like athletes taking over, like there's no head coach there, right? Nicky Ryan, we call him probably the head coach, but for overall, it's like a bunch of athletes with a bunch of different viewpoints kind of like figuring out what they need to focus on and how they come together to win. And so it's just kind of created this like environment of just like open learning and good times. So it's been fun.
It definitely seems to be working, man. You guys are crushing it and stuff. So what was the genesis? Like how, like, you and Craig, and you said Ethan, was it?
Yeah. So it was Craig, Nicky Rod, Nicky Ryan, and Ethan are like the founding partners and myself. Just high speed. I was living in San Diego. Been a part of a gym for like over 10 years. Austin's my home. I was born and raised in Austin. So I knew from a very, early in my jiu-jitsu career, I always wanted to have an academy, not to be the head of the academy. Because when you're the head of the academy, you're married to the school. You got to run everything. It's a lot of responsibility. And I knew that my travel and lifestyle, like I just want to train and have like a good time and learn and like elevate. And I like to coach and help, of course, but I've been a part of it. It was a Gracie Humaita. I'm a black belt under Hedges Lebry and Hoyler Gracie. And Donald Park, he founded the school, and then he kind of blew up. And so then I kind of took over, and we brought in, a head coach. And we were just kind of doing that. And I was living in San Diego. Me and my wife were like, hey, it's time to move back to Austin. In the same kind of time frame, I had a gap. Basically, I was going to move back, and I had like this window where I didn't have a home. I bought a house in Austin, but I do a lease back. I didn't want to stay in California and pay those taxes. And so I was like, we got to bounce. And my friend who's actually here with me was in Puerto Rico doing the Act 22, right? Yeah. And he coincidentally was training with DDS, like in the room. And I went down to visit, started training. They said, oh, you can hang out here and train. And so I got in a condo there for like this 6-month window. And that's how I met the guys. During that time, I had a falling out with my business partner. And so I basically, because I loved Gracie Humaita and it was like my team and I helped found that team in Austin, I didn't want it to damage the team. So we kind of just separated in the fact that, hey, you can continue this team. I'm just going to keep the facility. We'll keep it copacetic and I'll just figure it out. I'll do media and pump jiu-jitsu in my hometown. And then fast forward like 2 months later, after all that went down, the team broke up. Yeah. And I was in Austin for a WNO event and I knew that Craig, like, didn't know him very well. I was in that room, kind of a high level stuffy room, I wasn't saying shit. I was just training. But Craig is the guy that was like in our corner that we just automatically like talking shit. Like I like to talk shit, have a good time. And we kind of made some comments. And then we were in Austin And I just was like, hey, bro, what are you going to do? Like, what's your plan? I know you hate Puerto Rico. And he was like, oh, man, after ADCC, I'm going to move to Austin. And I was like, oh, for real? I was like, well, hey, man, jokingly, it was like, I got an academy if you want to do something. He was like, haha, yeah, right. Like, we didn't know each other. And he had, you know, didn't want to have training partners or whatever. And then the team split up. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. This seems like drama filled. I don't want no drama. You guys got a lot of history that doesn't have anything to do with me before me. So I don't really know. And then Craig just stayed in Austin. And then that's when we started talking. And I was just like, hey, man, look, I have this place for another year until I do my re-up on my lease, which is another like 5 years. It's guaranteed. I was like, but how about we do this? Do it 1 year. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, there's no hard feeling. And that for me and Craig was like, that was perfect. It was like, man, 1 year we can gut it out. You know, they got ADCC coming up. They can make it happen. And then, yeah, the Mexican ground karate was born. And it just blew up. And now it's like a whole enterprise, you know? So it's been fun. That's how it kind of like
here
all
you are
came
back
together.
in the homeland, the motherland.
Yes, that's right.
In Mexico.
Yeah, all your stuff
Getting
was like,
some
where is
stem
that?
cell.
Where is that?
Yeah,
I
they
need that.
probably love it.
They
Yeah,
loved
they
it. I
do.
was
They
like,
love
where is
stuff
that?
like
Austin,
that.
Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, jiu-jitsu's obviously gonna grind you down after 20 years. So yeah, here to get hooked up so I can continue on my path. You know,
I love that. Yeah, it's man, I feel like we kind of like we're like a generation apart, but same kind of ideas. You know, back in the day, like. Especially like being in America, jiu-jitsu was so small back. You know, started on the mat in 1996. We had the first downloadable jiu-jitsu videos on the internet, 120 by 124 pixels. You had to wait all night for it to download on there. And I just wanted to get content and, you know, like taught myself how to edit in Final Cut Pro and Gumby, my, you know, my business partner in that, like he worked at IX Micro. They were working on video compression. So he would spend all day compressing jiu-jitsu videos for our website. My brother Cade, he's a black belt under Eddie Bravo. He had a server, worked at a server company. So we had free bandwidth and it just like all came together. But people got so mad that I was jumping around from school to school, training, going to different tournaments, featuring people, you know, from all different teams everywhere. You know, it was like, man, you can't do this, bro. You cannot do this, you know, like, bro. You know, it's just like, and I would always get in these arguments about like, hey man, the more the sport grows, the better it gets for you, you know. And there seems to have always been since jiu-jitsu came to the U.S. kind of a scarcity mentality, you know? And it's like, this is one of the most amazing sports there is. Like, you think you can't get more students? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, come on, you know, the more people are like, I remember when we hit like 1 million visitors on the mat and I was just like, holy shit, shit's changing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was like in a month, right? You know? Now guys are getting like 1 million views on one YouTube video. And it's just like, so hopefully some of those people that used to want to beat me up and throw me out of their academies realize there's plenty of people that want to train jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, just like I was telling you before the podcast, it's like a trip because we are a little generation apart, but it was like I followed that same path. Like early 2000, I'm on onthemat.com researching where to go in Brazil for my training, and you know, living down there for a year. And it's like, even though there's that gap, it was still in that early 2000s. It was like not only a superpower, but everyone was like secretive. There wasn't access to the kind of game, so there still was that Crianchi vibe, especially in the United States, because all the main schools were led by, you know, a Brazilian that had relocated, you know, and come over. And now it's so interesting to see, like, it's completely erased because the access to information. There's no secret moves. Like, you want to learn something, you just go online and you can find it. Like, and we're seeing that now, just being an international school, B Team. It's like, I'll give a shout out to my boy Joseph Chen. Like, this kid in China training 4 years off of legally ripped off downloads. And he's coming into our room and hanging with all the pros.
Wow.
Goes to ADCC, like a high level competitor. And like, was with him in Thailand when we went out there for the camp with Craig. He's so good. 6 months later, he's here in Austin and he's even better. And you're just like, it's not fair, man. I'm like 43. I'm like, look at this kid. He's like, hasn't turned 19 yet. And he's highlight reeling me. Like, you know, like, it's just crazy. Like, with the access to information now, it's just so different. I just have to say, like, you're like a trailblazer in that. You're like the first one, like, legit to put it out
Gumby and I
there.
were the first ones. And I would have people. So when I was lived in Brazil 3 years, when I was living down there, I would go to all the little tournaments because they would let me film. And then I put together the highlight videos, dengue fever, and all posted up on the internet. And I literally had jiu-jitsu guys show up my house demanding me to take down, but even if they won the match, they didn't want anyone to see what they were doing, you know?
So wild.
And I had a crazy story. Once I was at Top Team and I showed up with Oswaldo Paquita, who was like the video guy that made all the old videos back in the day in Brazil, in Rio. He was Carlson's best friend. And Margarita wanted me thrown out of the academy because I had posted some of his stuff. And he was upset later because I didn't even actually make this video. Kenny Florian did. It was called the Margarita Remix.
Oh yeah,
And
I
it
know
was
this.
like all you know, you know this video, man.
Yeah.
And
See
so
his hips, man. No one had a
you know,
guy
started
like
with
him.
Mark Lehman. He did his remixes, and then Kenny was a big fan of Margarita, similar game, and you know, he thought that I had made that video, and he just wanted to kill me. You know what I mean, and everything. And it's just, you know, it's just like the mentality. You know what I mean? Was like so. Now you got guys like putting every move they do out on online daily. You know what I mean? No one's trying to hide anything, and it's okay to go train here and there. And
it's funny because you don't even like I didn't even understand those rules. So like back in the day, I remember you know, when I moved to Rio, I was just training at Gracie Baja, because like man, like, you know, you had Henzo there, you had High in there, you had Hodger there. You know, I was like. So I started training at that school, and I made friends.
you were a Muay Thai.
Well, I transferred later, so I creanched later. You know, like
later.
Carlinhos gave me my blue belt, and then I went to purple, and then lifestyle and access to training, I had to switch teams. And I remember it was a big deal. I remember like when I told Feitosa, "Hey man, I hope there's no hard feelings." It was like, "Well, you're a different team now," and it was like, "Oh shit, wow." But I remember being down there and like. My friends visited from the U.S. and they trained with a different affiliation. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's my friends. And so I went and trained. And the next day, I was just getting the shit kicked out of me. And at the end of the training, I was getting smothered like this. And he was like, Seth, you don't ever train with someone else. I was like, oh, wait, what? You know, same thing. And I didn't know the rules. Like, I didn't know back then you couldn't ask a black belt to train. You know, I was living with Escrojega, Carlos Lemos. I had a little gap. And he let me stay with them. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, hey, let's train. And on the mat. And he, like, looked at me. And, like, I was like, yeah. And I'm white belt, you know. Dude, I've never been strangled so many times. And he was like, poor Seth, you never ask a black belt to train. You know, he was like, make example.
Escrojega pretty cool. He was just down here a
really
couple
cool
weeks,
guy,
and
man.
he took care of me a lot when I was down in Brazil. Like him, Lagarto. There were some guys that, you know, but yeah, I mean, I was at Gracie Baja for 3 years.
My first class was Legato,
you know?
yeah, man. I was like throwing up in the bathroom. He came like, you threw up? I'm like, yeah, bro, for sure.
Yeah. up on the heat sweat box of what was it?
Escrojega's a really nice guy, man.
He is a good guy.
Beautiful jiu-jitsu.
He got it too. Yeah, he's really good. So really I went through those, you know, phases first in the U.S. and then in Brazil. It was just, you know, even worse, you know, like, you creonch, you know. They tried to tell me, like, because I had my on the mat compound house there on the beach, you know. It was like 6-bedroom penthouse in front of Pepe Beach. It was like $2,000 or something like that a month, super cheap. And, you know, oh, no, you can only have Gracie Baja guys stay here. I'm like, what? No, dude. I had 17 dudes sleeping on the mat, one worlds from Americans from everywhere. I'm like, yeah, dude, whatever. You guys are gonna beat me up and kill me. Just beat me up and kill me. Like after a while, I got used to it, you know. That and like, you know, you never knew who anybody's ex-girlfriend was on the weekend, man. You know, oh man, you make a kiss. I'm gonna put a tattoo on her face then, man. How am I supposed to know? There's
if I don't kiss
500
her,
guys in this goddamn, like, which girl haven't you hooked up with? You know what I mean? Give me a break, you know.
Especially when you're diving in the culture, you know, you gotta like, hey man, it's make out before you hang out. You know,
that's different down there. You know what I mean? Plus, you know, like, I figured a lot of things. You know, I started when this is how old I am. The drinking age used to be 18 in New York. When I was 16, I had a fake ID. I was figuring out how to get into New York City nightclubs. So when I got to Rio, I figured out how to get in all the nightclubs within like 2 months. You know what I mean? I had my game. And then I would always have all these gringos save up their whole life to come spend a week, a month in Brazil. I didn't have any money. You know what I mean? I was just doing all the mat stuff, you know, barely paying the bills, renting out rooms, selling gis online, making videos, you know. And but they always want to go out. Like, I don't have any money. They're like, I pay. You know what I mean? I'll be like, all right, let's go. You know, like all of a sudden everybody thought I was all rich. I'm like, I'm not paying. This guy's paying this week, and this guy's paying next week. You know what I mean? Like all this stuff, and God, it's just the anger and the jealousy of it. You know what I mean? Like, bro, I'm a blue belt. Like, what am I teaching these guys to beat your black belts? Like,
Exactly.
in that case, give me a purple. You know, just give me a. But they would never promote. Nobody would ever promote me in Brazil.
Yeah.
It was like a running joke. I was a 7-year blue belt down there smashing purples and browns, but nobody would promote me.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's super
It's
funny.
a different culture, man, definitely. But it's great to see what you guys are doing, man. I'm a super big fan of everything that you guys got going on. But like for you, like how do you have the time, man? You run this successful team, you know, like.
Man, I'm super fortunate that I wasted a lot of my early years in my corporate career setting myself up and having this.
Oh, good, yeah.
Now it's more of like doing something like, if you do something you love, you don't have to work, day in your life kind of deal. And just the other opportunities, I feel like I'm the type of person you get stagnant in one thing. You're like, oh man, I'm not learning. I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't know if I can just do a gym. And then B Team has just become something else. Like, okay, we start doing the YouTube and so you're learning about content creation and, how to kind of monetize the content. And then it's like, oh, cool. And then it goes into Craig being a natural born marketer, like coming up with merch ideas. And man, like he's just like makes a joke. He's like, oh, Mexican ground karate. And then you're like, we should put the sign out front, Mexican ground karate. I'm like, dude,
do you really have
happening.
that?
Oh yeah. There's a sign out front that says Mexican ground karate. We were like, when you're opening the gym, it was like, what do we put out there? Like, we're not just jiu-jitsu, because that was at the time when everyone was arguing. Is it American jiu-jitsu? Is it Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Is it just jiu-jitsu? Like Flo made a documentary about it. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like on this hype train. And Craig's like, man, fuck that. We don't even do any of it. We do Mexican ground karate as like a joke.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, we got to put that sign out. And the next thing you know, it was like, let's make some merch. And then like they started going. And then it's just like those things evolve. So like, just the learning and like what's happening and the opportunities now, because at the same time that we're exploding and B Team's exploding, the sport is really growing like so fast, and you're just seeing like younger and younger, not people just get into it, but athletes like treating it like a pro sport. You know, like there's so many, like Joseph Chen, you got like the Colabates, man. That's just like that kid came into Humaito in San Diego as an orange belt, and like I just remember being like, what the what's going on? Like, this is insane, the level. And so, man, it's just so much fun. And the guys we're all invested. We're all close and like into it. Like, hey, we're going to go as hard as we can for as long as we can. 'Cause who knows how long it'll last. It's a super team. It's like not 100% realistic to think all these guys are going to be together in Austin, Texas forever. Sure. So let's just maximize it for now and then see how we can like build a team and a structure that'll support it and, break out. 'Cause we've been taking applications since we opened the door for affiliations, and we have hundreds across the world. So we're just like, okay, we have a curriculum set up, we have these things set up, but let's just focus on this next ADCC and really establish it and line out how we're going to do it the right way. And then we'll go from there,
Yeah. So many smart business moves, man. I really respect you. In the way, from the vibe and everything, the application thing, I used to make people apply to buy a Lucky Yi.
Oh, yeah.
I get it, that exclusivity.
That's what we did in the very beginning. Like, yo, you want to be a B Team, you got to apply. And so we had like 1,000 memberships, and me and Craig were like at a coffee shop, like going through each application.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to think that we were only going to accept like 75 up front. We're like, oh, we'll just do the first 75. And then we're going through these applications, and they're like from people around the world or around the nation. And you're like, oh man, this guy's too far. I'm not going to do it. And then later on, you just get like, honestly, get bored of like going through this stuff. And you're like, okay, cool. I'll just accept this guy. And then come to find out, these people relocated from another country. Yeah. They relocated from across the United States. We have like one of our boys that, works with us, Peaches, like from Boston. I'm like, man, how did you end up at B Team? He's like, you accepted my application. I'm like, wait, you moved like straight from Boston? Oh yeah. Yeah. And so now you still have that. You still have these people like, oh man, well, you let me train there. And we're like, we're taking students now. Like, you don't have to apply. And I still get emails on the daily. Like, hey, can I come in? Can I train? Because at first it was, because the ADCC was like, a year out. We only took no white belts. That was the big thing. Everyone was like, no white belts. And they were like, oh man, it's a dream gym. You don't have to worry about
white belts. Like,
blue belts.
White belts are people too.
Yeah, white belts are people too. We do have a program now. So if you're a white belt.
Okay, because I got one, because I actually sent one of my staff guys from here, Elijah.
Oh, yeah?
He's like, where should I train? He lives in Austin. I'm like, I didn't know you guys didn't accept white belts. He goes down there. He's like, bro, I'm brand new. They said they won't even let me in the gym. And I'm like, oh, sorry about that. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, we recently launched a white belt program because we just got.
I was sending back in.
There's so many people like, come on, man, please. I'm like, oh, you can come through. But it was more like, we did that because we did have a short time for ADCC,
Sure.
and we wanted to have the right training partners and the space. And then also another business decision. It was, hey, you know this from training. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just walk into the room.
Yep.
You know, regardless of what level you are, even especially if you're a beginner. But even more to the point, like sometimes you feel like you're in a really big room that you don't get the shine or you don't get the attention from the coach. You know, you're just someone in there. And so one of the things that was really important to us in the beginning, you know, vibe and the level was like, hey, we don't want people to feel like they're lost in a big room. We want them to feel like they have access and attention. And so even if the coaches aren't on you all the time, everybody knows at B Team that you can walk up to any one of the guys and ask a question, and they're not going to be like, get a private.
Right.
You know, or like, hey, you should have been paying a class. That's totally. And so now it's like, hey, you can ask anyone. And so it creates that like open forum where like, you know, these visitors, they come. It's like, man, I came all the way from Germany, and I can walk up to Nicky Ryan and be like, yo, help me with this. And he's going to be like, yeah, okay, cool. This is like, show me. Okay, this is what
if you got your blue belt already, you're in.
You're in.
You're in.
Exactly.
You know, the turnover in white belts, especially back in the old school days at House, we call it the injury factory.
Oh yeah.
And so, if you came from another school, the goal was to like, beat you till you wanted to quit. And if you came back the next day, you're cool. But most people didn't come back.
Oh man. Even when we started Umaita in Austin, Donald, his mentality is that we had like the founding 10, 11 guys. I think I was the last one actually. And we would train at the University of Texas, and only like 1 or 2 days a week would he let other people come. So make that exclusive model. Like I ripped that off of Donald, you know?
Right.
And what he would do is like, hey, I'm going to train you guys, but when we open it up to visitors, it's going to be rolling day. And when that happens, you highlight reel everybody. Like we go for it. And so then people would come in that room and they would just be like,
crush.
Crush. And they'd like take off my brown belt, dude. That's how these blue belts and purple belts just killing me.
Yeah.
And then they just wanted to be in. And so by the time he opened up Umaita in Austin, man, there was 74 people out the door waiting to sign up, just like let me in, let me in, let me in. And so it kind of created that vibe, and I think that B Team did a good job of ripping that off, classic Krianchi form.
Rip off and duplicate R&D, buddy.
Man,
R&D.
you see something smart, you do it, so yeah.
Good stuff, man. You got the podcast, right? You guys are doing
so we launched the El Segundo podcast with Craig Jones. B Team Jiu Jitsu is our YouTube channel, and then Nicky Rod, Ethan, and Damian Anderson, another stud. They have the Simple Man podcast. So everyone's kind of putting it out there and putting out the content. But yeah, El Segundo podcast is off to a good start. We've had some awesome people. Craig draws some like pretty interesting characters. We've had like Josh Barnett, Uncle Chael. Some really cool people. We had Bill the Grill, which was like awesome for me because it's like one of the OG jiu-jitsu guys. But the audio problem, and that's where he like lost it all. We only got like one little cut that you can see in the open, and it's him going, "Who? Craig Jones?" But that was all we could savor. But
man,
talk about an OG of the sport.
Audio problems, been there, done that too.
Totally.
Man. Craig's one from where he did the IBJJF Worlds. Like, oh, dude, I sent it to Ed, my business partner, because the two of us been through it. Well, even back to when it was CBJJ, right? Before.
Totally.
And the just the mentality around it and everything. And Craig or Matt, you're a genius. I love you. That was awesome.
That video was off to the races, man. Yeah,
I bet, man. I bet it got a lot of, Well, you're also telling me about your Krianch shirt, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, we thought it was like making fun of ourselves. It's like the self-deprecating humor that we have, right? It's like making the Krianchi top team, putting the rainbow flag in there because, that's just going to offend people anyway, in like the jiu-jitsu culture anyway.
Yep.
And, man, that Krianchi top team, man, that was like contacting Flo, take that off, it's like got us in some hot water. But it was like, man, we're the Krianchis, we all left a different team to create our own team. That's like, it's funny, but nowadays it's comical to even think that that's a term still used,
I mean, if you would ask Carlson who the Krianches were, you get a different story about who the Krianches were and
I
stuff.
think the offensive part of it was that we didn't think about was that when we put Krianchi top team, it came from like Brazilian top team, and they had defactored from Carlson. So there was like all the links, and we were like, oh, well, it won't be a big deal. I mean, it'll be funny. And then, it didn't think it was too funny.
I found, you know, like back to what I was saying at the beginning, like jiu-jitsu I always thought was fun, you know what I mean? In class, everybody's joking around, but like stuff you post online, you know, like even, you know, I posted the how to meet Brazilian girls thing, and like it turned like the whole got published in Gracie Mag and then in Ogia newspaper, and you know went viral before going viral was a thing, and people wanted to kill me. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, it's a joke. You know, like it's like you know, it's like like today's culture too. You can't joke about it.
Well, we joke around that Craig does so much stuff, and it's such his humor now that we're just like, man, this guy can't get canceled, though, because no one takes him serious. You know, they don't get sarcasm.
When you're that good,
so like,
too.
is he joking or is he not? You know, so it's worked well
man.
for us so far.
Well, good shit, man. What are we fixing up for you here with the stem cells?
So after a life on the mat, it's the shoulder, man, and it just came out of nowhere. It wasn't like one thing. It just one day just locked up, and I'm like, what's going on, you know? And then I got an MRI, and they were like, you know, torn labrum, some cartilage damage, and, you know, the doctors were basically like, well, you know, like, when you get older in life, you get arthritis, and it's just it started for you. And I'm like, dude, what? And they're like, yeah, you should probably not do jiu-jitsu anymore. And I'm like, man, I'm out of here.
What?
I'm like, yeah, like, what did you just say to me? Like, so, you know, I've done, I tried stems in the U.S., but as you know, they're not the same quality or quantity, and they didn't have the right expert. They're sitting at my rotator cuff, and I'm like, man, I have a torn labrum. I'm like, rotator
really?
cuff's
Wow.
good. So they stuck it in the back. But I didn't know enough, you know? So then when I did more research, I'm like, man, that was a waste of $3,500, you know?
I gotta wonder, like, what kind of, like, I can't even get the reagents to do the stem cells we do for $3,500. There's this other place down here in Mexico. They do like 10 bazillion stem cells for fucking $3,000, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of stem cells these are, man. But I could barely turn on an incubator for $3,000. You know, like what are they giving these people?
And then like
know?
it's literally it was like a syringe like this big of like, you know, what they're putting in, and it didn't do anything. And then, you know, just led me on this journey of like researching and then understanding, and then, you know, luckily I got connected with Henry Akins, and then, you know, he was like, told me his experience, and then connected us. And so I'm super excited about it because, you know, I want to do anything to keep training. I don't know what I would do without it. I know there's a time in your life where you have to be like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And you might have to turn it off.
I had that time, man.
Yeah,
you know, I was forced, you know, broke my back in 3 places, had 5 bad discs, ruptured 1. You go from training twice a day, sometimes every day.
Yep.
You know, to laying flat on your back for 8 months, and like the brain goes, you know, I got trouble convincing people to take a few months off down there. You see, you know,
yeah, for sure.
And you know, but it's like, you know, I was told 3 months, at 8 months I couldn't walk, you know, and like I tried to come back and train, but just couldn't do it.
Well, it wasn't until 2 hours ago that I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna rest for a couple weeks, and I'll be right back to training. And then you're like, hey, man, is it 10 years more training or taking off, you know, like 10 weeks? And I'm like, okay, that resonated. Like, hey,
I get
man,
it.
like,
I get it.
It's about
Jiu-jitsu
happiness.
is definitely a drug. Like, it's definitely addicting.
It's addictive.
I mean, I was similar to you, man. I had a high-paying corporate sales tech job that I just quit everything, started on the mat.com, saved up some money, 9/11 hits. I'm like, I'm leaving this country, sell everything I own down to 3 suitcases and move to Brazil. I don't even know where I'm going. I could say like Poha in 2 other words. I'll just show up there at Gracie Baja like, yo, anybody got a place I can stay, you know? Like, what's up, you know?
I mean, because, man, when I started jiu-jitsu, there was just like, you know, started athletics way too late. You know, that was like the greatest thing about jiu-jitsu, right? Like, you can just start. There's a program and you can start. And I was just like, man, I can't be a pro athlete in this, but this is all I really want to do. And then it was like, cool, I had to work like 15 years before I could just do jiu-jitsu full time, you know? And it was like, all right, you know, because some of the younger guys were like, Seth, you know, how to do this? I'm like, well, give up your dream, man, and then work for a while and then go back to it. Like, you don't want to do that, so don't.
I got lucky with, you know, on the mat. It was an interesting time, especially when DVDs came out before you could rip them. And when I dropped 101 submissions, at the time, that was like,
dude, I had that. I had dengue fever, bro.
Like, I think around 28,000 copies of that. And when I first put it out, it was $40. I would sell 1,000. I have 40 grand living in Brazil. You know, I'm like, I'm
rich.
set for a
I
while.
made it. Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then I would print another set. You know, print another set, and then, you know, 101 Part 2. Did pretty good, probably like 7,000. And then by time 3, the DVD burners came out, and
Yeah,
I didn't even sell like 1,000 copies.
Yeah,
You know, and the what were those torrent sites back
Oh
in the
yeah,
day?
yeah.
Funny thing about the torrent site was when I put 101 Part 3 out, I knew it was going to get torrented, so I put it out first on the torrent as a fake one, and it was the intro, and then like an hour long a loop of a certain part of my body just waving back and forth on loop, and we would sit there and watch hundreds of people downloading this, and I'm like, yeah, can't wait till you download this.
That's awesome.
I got you. You know what I mean? But it still didn't help sales. Didn't even help that. But
It helped his heart, you know.
It helped me. Yeah, feel like some people had to see a part of my body they never wanted to see. That was for sure, man. Well, I'm pumped to get your shoulder fixed up. Are we doing the chondrocytes? You getting the cartilage cells? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. I think I have a medical review, but I was looking at my old one and it was showing extensive cartilage damage.
Yeah,
so I'm
we're
pretty
gonna get 'em
positive
in
we're
there,
going to get in
yeah,
there. So
yeah.
I'm excited to document my journey and see how it goes. And you know.
Well, we're the only place in the world you can get them right now.
Right.
So let's.
That's awesome.
I'll be excited to see how you come back. 3 months, get your free follow-up MRI.
you know
and
it.
See how it's nice being what. One flight to San Diego from Austin?
Easy, and I used to live in
Yeah.
San Diego, so it's like just visit some friends, hang out,
Perfect.
cruise
Yeah.
down, and it's like, man, I have to say it's just like such a smooth process to like get picked up in a nice dope spinner van, cruise through the border with ease. The setup here is super nice. The food's been so good, you know. I'm like, man, this is like excellent. So
Best
far,
hospital food ever.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
It's just been an awesome experience. And then like today, you're sitting there talking, I'm looking out, and there's like dolphins swimming like literally in front of me. I'm like, man, this is great, you know, like.
And you didn't get beheaded or kidnapped
Nah,
yet. Yeah.
I've spent 10 years, 25 weeks a year in Latin America traveling. So these guys be like, TJ, I'm like, bro, we're gonna be fine. Like, it's
I
gonna
mean,
be okay.
I get it. There's a stigma, you know what I mean? But I mean, man, like what city? I'm sure it's part of Austin you could go to.
For sure.
F
Anywhere. You can
around
find
and
trouble
find
anywhere,
out.
man.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know?
And like anything bad's going on, it's like so far away from us. You know, the clinic's not even in TJ technically.
Right.
You know, but it was crazy when we had that. You know, there was like those 4 people that got kidnapped and murdered, 1,500 miles, you know, away from here. And I had a bunch of mass cancellations. I had people that had put their entire payment down that were within the cancellation time that gave up their money. They were so scared. I was talking to this one guy and I'm like, well, bro, who are you? Are you like former DEA, billionaire, you know, something like that? And he's like, no, you know, well, just a regular guy. Oh, yeah. Why do you think they would target you?
Yeah.
You know, like what's so special about you that you think they're going to kidnap you and get something great?
Yeah.
You know, like if you're just a regular guy, and I've been here 9 years now, I don't know anybody that's ever had a problem. You know, plus that was 1,500 miles away from here. 4 Americans have a problem out of the 22 million a year that come to Mexico, and you're scared. You know what I mean?
It's wild how people get that. Like I was going to Mexico City, you know, Colombia, all these places with having stuff, and they're like, man, you're like, even if you're like well off, you're not even a target. You got to have hundreds of millions of dollars and have some narco problems or DEA problems to even be something. So to stay here, which is like, I think of this place as like an extension of San Diego. You know what I mean? It's so close.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's got California license plates.
The nicest restaurants right from the hotel last night. It was like one of the best restaurants I've been to in a long time. It was amazing. It's just like, man, I don't know what you could be. If that's the worry, you got something else going on. You know,
Dude, LA is scarier.
For sure.
100%.
100%.
LA, downtown LA, around Hollywood
Chicago.
right now. Like I used to live right on Hollywood Boulevard, Walk of Stars, and we went up there. We went to Soho House, met with some of the Red Bull guys and stuff, and like stayed at the Roosevelt. Super sketchy. I'm just like, yo, dude, let me take my watch off and
like,
put
go
it
to
in
Venice now. Like,
you know what I mean?
No,
oh yeah, Venice is gnarly.
It's gnarly, man. It's crazy. I used to love like go train at Crohn's, I get my bike, and then go down and like go to Venice and like hang out. Like now I would never do that.
You never park your bike and go in the smoothie shop. That's for sure. You wouldn't have
gone.
no bike no more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
Man, cool. Well, great hanging out, buddy.
Yeah, for
Looking
sure.
forward to you coming back with those great results.
Yeah,
and
man.
I want my Mexican.
Oh, dude, I
karate
got you,
t-shirt.
man. You send me the address, I'll hook you up. But thank you so
I'll
much.
take
for
that
having me,
one
man.
even if it's
I appreciate
sweaty.
it. Right on.
Awesome. Hey, but I know you said you were going to, you know, kind of blog and put up videos about all your progress and stuff like that. So if people want to, you know, catch up and see how things are going, you haven't had your stem cells yet, but they want to see if it actually works or not. where's the best place they could find you and hear your podcasts and stuff?
Make sure you follow us, guys, on B Team Jiu Jitsu on YouTube, and then check out the El Segundo podcast with Craig Jones on anywhere you listen to a podcast, Spotify, Apple, etc. And then do my boy Nicky Rod and Ethan a favor and check out the Simple Man podcast as well.
All right, awesome. That was fun, man.
Yeah, cool,
Good
man.
shit.
Thanks,
Lots of
brother.
laughs.
Yeah, hell yeah.